If you've been listening to the podcast for a while and thought, man, I would love to grab a drink and pick the brain of some of these guests I've been listening to, or maybe me as well, here's your shot. I'm putting on an event this April called Elevate. This is the third year doing this, and we're going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, where we're going to have the top agency owners really come together, share what's working, get real on what's not, and really help each other scale faster. So if you're ready to finally get out of the weeds and grow your agency the right way, I want you to join me and 50 other amazing 7 and 8 figure agencies at Elevate. You'll connect with people who've been there, leave with a real growth plan, and actually enjoy the process. Now, we only have a few tickets left, so make sure you go over to elevatemyagency.com to lock in your spot now. Go to elevatemyagency.com now. Hey, Eli. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Excited to have you on and talk about the agencies that you have. How long have you been in the agency space?
Man, I started MatterMade, my first agency, in 2019, early 2019.
Okay. And what made you start?
You know, I had been playing the venture-backed SaaS game for a while. And, you know, I thought I wanted to swing for the fences, build a public company someday. I'd had a modest exit with my first SaaS business. And after exiting that business, just was ground down to nothing. I was so tired and so over the VC model. And so I just had an honest conversation with myself about what I actually wanted to do with my life, and realized that, you know, my biggest driver in life is to have a family and be able to have flexibility of lifestyle and freedom of place, financial freedom. And so looked at my options, and I felt like an agency is the best path to get there, in the shortest fashion. And so decided to give it a swing. And the rest is kind of history.
What'd you come out of the gate charging? I'm wondering.
Man. So when I first launched the agency, originally, I didn't even want it to be an agency. It was just kind of like, let me consult and advise with startups and do marketing, like strategy for them. And so I basically backed into the numbers and said, you know, if I want to make $40,000 a month, I need to have something like 16, 18 clients at $2,500 a pop. And that gets me there. And that felt very simple. And as soon as I had closed my first 2 or 3 clients, I realized very quickly, like, I don't actually like doing the work.
Just the hunting.
I like hunting. I like managing people and building teams and putting people who are smarter than me in front of me to do the actual work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we came out of the gate charging $2,500 a month.
And what did you realize when you were charging $2,500 as you were building the team? Was that enough, or was profit going way down?
No, I mean, I'm a big fan of price sensitivity testing. And so as soon as we started getting quick yeses, I realized there was room to increase our prices. Especially as I started to build out a team, like the $2,500 a month was just not going to fly. And so we just started doubling our pricing over and over and over again. The methodology that I followed and still to this day follow is, you know, being an agency business, we naturally run into capacity issues, right? It's we have talent on the team. Eventually that talent gets to capacity and you have to hire again. And so there's this natural lull where you're at capacity or nearing capacity. You can't really say yes to that many more deals, or maybe even any more deals, without risking your quality of product to go down off a cliff, and then you run into churn issues. And so whenever I find myself in that moment, that's when I love to test new pricing, because really there's nothing to lose. If people say no, you're like, great, I couldn't really take on new business anyway. And if they say yes, then you're ultra motivated to staff up and make it work. So yeah, we doubled our price from $2,500 to $3,500. I think our next jump was from $3,500. Sorry, not $2,500. $2,500 to $5,000. Then I think we went 5 to 10.
Yeah, I was like, how is $2,500 to $3,500? I was like, you're bad at math, man.
Live math, man. I should never do that. 5 to 10K. Then we did 10 to 15, so not quite a doubling. We were starting to get a little trigger shy at that point because it felt like such a big number compared to what we had been charging. And over the course of 3 years, we marched our price from $2,500 a month to $45,000 a month. And we peaked at $45,000 a month as far as the price that we found we could actually still close deals on a repetitive basis without throwing too many deals out the window.
So it's a huge jump. So I want to kind of break down. Obviously, you probably added services, you added to the team. So can you walk us through that? Because I just want people to kind of understand, you just didn't go, all right, my prices are $2,500. I'm going to do the same work, same thing for $45,000. So what changed?
Yeah. So the structure when we were 2,500, it was just me and a friend. The friend was doing the work. I was doing the selling, and maybe helping a little bit with the strategy. Then pretty quickly we realized we needed like a doer, somebody that was even more junior than my friend, who would just be hands on keyboard. So we brought that person in. I fully removed myself from the strategy piece. So it was really just those two executing. And then I would say on our path to around 15,000 a month, that was when the most change happened in our offering. So it went from, hey, we'll help you with your demand gen strategy. And it was very loosely defined what that actually meant. And really what it meant was, we'll figure out whatever we need to figure out on the marketing side to help you grow the way you want to grow. And, it just wasn't really scoped. Over the course of that sprint from 2,500 to 15,000 a month, we built that team from 2 to a pod that comprised of, call it 4 team members and a team lead. So 4 doers, team lead. At that point, it included paid search, paid social, design, strategy. And those were kind of the core pillars.
Okay.
But after 15K, the model really hardened, and there wasn't that much change from 15 to 45. I think what changed there was the clout that we had in the industry, the case studies that we had in the industry, and the confidence that we had when we were pitching. And we were able to shift from pitching it more as a good deal and a utility to, you want results. We have a track record of results, and you're either willing to pay for the results or not. In fact, part of my sales pitch, my favorite part of my sales pitch, when we really got things humming, I would say, hey, listen, I know if you're talking to us, you're probably talking to our 3 nearest competitors. And if you're talking to our three nearest competitors, I know that our price is going to be at least $10,000 a month, maybe $15,000 a month higher than our next nearest competitor. And, people ask me all the time, like, what do we get that's different? What are the deliverables that are different? What's the scope look like that's different? And I would tell them, nothing is different. The only difference is our track record. The difference is that we've produced these results and they haven't yet. And maybe they will someday. And the question is, are you willing to pay to not risk taking a bet? Or is cash important enough to you that you do want to risk a little bit and save some? And I knew that we were pitching a segment of the market that wasn't cash sensitive. And so they ate that pitch alive. They just loved it.
Hi there, agency owners. Let me ask you, are you ready to scale your agency without increasing your overhead costs? If yes, then you need to know about E2M Solutions. Now, E2M is the #1 most reliable white label partner for agencies. They specialize in web design, WordPress development, e-commerce, SEO, and content writing. They basically do all the heavy lifting, which frees you up to focus on growing your agency. Now, here's the best part. E2M is just not another vendor. With over 10 years of experience, their team of over 300 experts has a track record of delivering for more than 300 agencies. They're your strategic partner. They deliver on time every time so you can focus on what you do best. Now, E2M's mission is simple: to help 500 agencies increase their revenue and profit margins with white label services that actually work. And to help you get started, they're offering a special deal, 10% off for the first 3 months, but act fast because it's only a limited time offer. So head over to e2msolutions.com/smartagency to check out their transparent and their flexible pricing. Trust me, if you're ready to grow without burning out, E2M is the partner you've been looking for. That's e2msolutions.com/smartagency. Go check them out and tell them Jason Swank sent you. None of them push back?
Oh, they push back all the time, but then they'd still sign the deals. Like,
because
you're playing a game of chicken.
Yeah, because when people would, we were always significantly higher than everybody else. And I basically always explained to them, look, you can always get it cheaper and you might get the same results. But here's the biggest difference is we're going to save you a ton of time. You may have to spend and babysit them 10 times more than you would with us in order to get the same results. So you got to kind of decide, do you want to have to babysit someone that, right? Because everyone always would, when I get pitched and they go, oh, it's my people, my portfolio, my process. And I always, I'm like, everybody says that because everybody's been coached that. But, when you kind of define, like when I would define it and say, look, I can go build a house. I don't know what I'm doing about building a house and being a general contractor. I'm going to get screwed. I'll eventually have 4 walls and a roof. My windows may be crooked. My doors may be, cracking. I'll eventually get there. But I put so much time into it versus, look, this is what I want. Go do it, right? Like, and I think that's what you guys did. And I just want to make that clear to everybody. Like, when people go, why are you so much more? You'd be like, you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking, why are they so much less?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I love the storytelling there. It's powerful.
I do want to switch a little bit of focus because you separated your agency into 2. And we were kind of talking a little bit about that kind of on the pre-show. So, obviously I set that up because people are like, well, what do you mean you set it up into 2? Because there's a lot of people in the world right now, they're trying to combine so they get bigger valuations and they're a bigger agency and that kind of stuff. So you did the complete fucking opposite. So why did you do that?
Yeah. So there's a little backstory that'll be helpful here, which is my marketing agency, MatterMade, at its peak. So it peaked in 2021. We were servicing the tech sector. Tech sector was hot, on fire, crushing in 2021. And then for folks who are familiar with the tech sector, in 2022, it completely crashed. And all the VCs pulled their funding from companies and said, you better be able to survive the next 3 years without any cash infusion. And what we mean by that is now you need to go fire all your agency support, probably about half of your staff, and hunker down for the winter. And that's exactly what these portfolio companies did. And that was all of our client base. And so when we peaked in 2021, we did 4.2 million in EBITDA that year. And we thought we were on top of the world. We were shopping the deal to bankers. Like, we were in it. And when that market fell out from underneath us, we went from crushing to losing $200,000 a month almost overnight. I mean, it happened so fast. And me being a first-time agency founder back then, I was like, this is just a temporary blip. We're going to hold on to our team, and we're going to, when all of our competitors are letting their teams go, and then this blip is going to be over, and we're going to go eat all of their lunch. And I held on for 3 months. I was like, well, maybe it's just a longer blip. Held on for 6 months, I just burned everything.
Over $1 million. Yeah.
Yep. And painful lesson learned. But when we finally did make the cuts necessary to right size the business for what our client base looked like, I had these 2 rock star designers on the team, and I had no work to justify their existence. And I was done with holding on to people that I couldn't back into revenue and be profitable on. And so I went to them and I said, hey, I have a hypothesis. I have no idea if it's going to be right, but my guess is that all of these tech companies just fired all of their non-essential, air quotes, non-essential employees, meaning designers are probably at the top of that list, and they're all on a hiring freeze. But what's going to happen is 3 to 6 months from now, their CEOs are going to go, why are our ads stale? Why does our website suck? Why can't we announce this new product? And design is going to be one of the bottlenecks that they get as a response from their team. But because they're on a hiring freeze, they're going to have to figure out a creative way to get around that. And they're going to look for agency support to get around the hiring freeze. And so I said to my head designer, I was like, if you're down for it, and to be clear, the alternative is I have to let you go. If you're down for it, let's create a website. Let's create a brand over the weekend. We'll launch it on Monday. And I'm going to see if I can drum up enough business to keep you guys employed. And he was down for the cause. So we just went for it. And within like 2 or 3 months, that was its own profitable business. So I decided to separate it and let it run on its own so that we could have a very clear message that resonated with that exact use case that wouldn't confuse the market, because we were already in that specific niche of B2B tech. B2B tech, B2B SaaS. We were one of the top 2 agencies. So the marketing agency had its own brand and what we were known for, and design was just a means to an end under that umbrella. But pulled out into its own separate entity, we could position it differently, and we could make it at the time, it wasn't a premium offering. At the time, it was a nail to the hammer that is they need to get around the hiring freeze. And then eventually we went up market and made it into more of a premium brand studio type offering.
Have you been able to, with the separation of both, do people understand that there's 2 agencies, or is there any cross-selling, amongst the team of going, hey, we just did this amazing campaign and design, but they really need this. And then is that going on?
Yeah. So there are a couple things that are going on that I think are really beneficial. One is that cross-sell is still very much a thing because they still serve very similar audiences. And so a lot of the time, even though MatterMade still has its own design resources in-house to serve the basic needs of campaign work, the minute a company is having a ton of success and they're like, we've got this brand initiative going on, boom, they're sending them over to No Boring Design, the design studio, and then No Boring Design captures an $80,000, cross-sell to do a new brand or something along those lines.
How do you make sure your clients understand that? Because I was working with a client many years ago. They had some really big clients. One was Spanx. Another one was I can't remember. And I just remember they kept adding services, and this was the same company, but they were just adding services. So I could only imagine with 2 companies. That's why I'm so curious. We realized after 3 years, Spanx was paying another agency that did what they did over $2 million a year.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah.
It was oh my gosh, we got to go back to 101 on onboarding and account management and all this kind of stuff. So how do you, what works for you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. We used to try to make it as seamless as possible for the client, thinking that would be the least friction. And hey, we already have an agreement in place with you. We'll just roll it in, and then you don't have to sign a new agreement with a new company and go through a new procurement process, depending on how big the client was. And that made things so muddy and so murky and so confusing. And then you had the confusion of account management. And does the client go to the marketing agency if they want to talk about some design stuff? Or what happens if they're having troubles or frustrations with one of those 2 entities? Whose neck do they wring? Who are they frustrated with? And so it took us, I would say, a year and a half of operating before we really had made it through enough iterations in the operating model to realize these things just need to be treated as totally, completely separate entities, which they are anyway. They have separate leadership teams, separate, execution and all of that. And so now when we make introductions, we just say we have a sister agency and they do great work. We've collaborated across a lot of clients together. We'll introduce you to their seller. So they even have their own sales processes separate.
Okay.
And that's really, really cleaned things up for us.
Did you know that agencies are losing 15 to 30% of profit every year, and most don't even actually realize it? The usual suspects are poor time tracking, manual timesheets, scope creep, untracked revisions. One or all of them could be draining your agency's revenue. Now, Toggle's agency profit heist turns this mystery into a game. Answer a few questions about your workflow, gather clues, discover exactly where your profits are leaking, and how to fix them. Start your investigation now by going to toggle.com/smartagency. That's Toggle, TOGGL.com/smartagency. Plus, get 10% off annual plans with the code SMARTAGENCY10 at checkout. Or just mention Jason Swank sent you. Looking back over the past couple of years, is there anything that you would change differently? Like, would you still separate them?
Yeah, I think separating them was the right move. It helped that business, it helped both businesses grow into what they needed to be and have the right messaging. So I think it would have been a much slower growth path for both of them if I had tried to, not even both. It would have been a slower growth path for the design firm if it was still tucked into MatterMade. The thing that I did that I definitely would not do again, and I thought I was so smart at the time for doing this, and I turned out to be such an idiot for doing this, was I thought I could create a management company that held all of our leadership. So, head of talent, people, recruiting, like anything that could be a shared resource. I thought, oh man, why pay for this twice? And I knew I was starting Profit Lab soon, the third agency. I was like, I'm going to have this like amazing roster of A players that I already trust and love. And it, if a large company can do this and they just call them divisions, why can't I and take advantage of all this cost savings and efficiency? Like, why create new processes for each company? And it sounded great when I said it out loud and, to my friends and talked about it. But in practice, it was a nightmare. And it was something that I had to very slowly and painfully unwind as we got further into it and realized it just wasn't going to work as envisioned. So first off, the idea that each company could maintain the same set of SOPs around the ways of working was too idealistic. There was just a little bit too much nuance company to company. And then it's like, well, at what point do small changes to these SOPs become big changes, become like they're just totally different ways of working? And now you're really managing three companies with the time bandwidth of one person, per leadership role. So that was the first piece. Then the second piece was that these leaders just started getting stretched too thin. So, one company would start doing really well. They'd start spending more time there. And then the company that's doing poorly was like, what the hell? Where are my resources?
Yeah.
So I'd say those are probably the two biggest pieces that drove the decision.
Yeah, it's difficult when you are doing things very differently. I remember when we were agency for maybe 3 or 4 years. I can't remember when we developed our CMS or email marketing system or e-commerce store. Like, we did this before SaaS, before all these tools were out there. And we just couldn't, like, the squeaky wheel got the oil. And the squeaky wheel was, the clients. And so it always wound up where we couldn't focus on our own products. And eventually the market passed us by on all those products.
Yep.
right? And, I was like, because man, it was a challenging time. Like when you have so many different focuses, it's tough. But if you can put the right people in the right seat that control that. So that's kind of why, I love your story about separating it versus combining it. And, like we talked about it too, you can always combine it later on because you own the damn things. Right. And then you can, get the bigger multiples, after a couple of years of them integrated and that kind of stuff. So, it's just, that's what I love about the show and talking to different people. There's thousands of ways to do things. There's not one set playbook for everyone. You just have to kind of take the little bits and pieces and go from there. That's the fun part. I'm curious with the creative agency, because the tools that we have today with AI are freaking unbelievable, from video editing, logo creation, design, all that kind of stuff. How are you guys jumping into the AI race for that company? Because I would, there's probably a lot of marketers are like, like design, I got it, I'm good.
Totally. And I think the same could be said even for marketing in some capacity, like paid media and these sorts of things, where it's easy for them to get lumped into the commodity bucket pretty quickly. And I think the counter pitch there and counter strategy will continue to be, you have to move up, you have to keep moving up market, and you have to find the brands that have big enough budgets where they understand that, like, let's take the design firm, No Boring Design, for a moment as the example. If we're pitching against the design pickles of the world, which we're not, like that's where AI is just, I'm sure Design Pickle is shitting their pants right now. Like that.
And Fiverr, right?
Yeah. Any kind of like bottom of the market, even like middle bottom of the market, should be very, very concerned right now. I think if you get into that upper strata of budget and sophistication of the execs that you're pitching, you can make a very strong case for, listen, AI is a race to the middle, which is great for people who don't have a budget because it gets you to like good enough really quickly. But if you want to stand out, AI is not going to help you do that because AI is just really good at helping you do the safe thing. And so in design and brand, safe, again, it's like, are you just trying to ship something quickly? By all means, AI away. But if you're if you're Salesforce or you're one of these bigger brands, Jasper, where you need to stand out, you need to be bold, and AI is not going to get you there. And it may help you brainstorm parts of this, but it's not going to actually step out on a limb and produce design that's never existed before, because that's not how LLMs and these models work.
Yeah, I always look at it too as, I like it that you said the race to the middle, because it isn't the race to the bottom. It's really good. But what I tell people too is like, and it depends on, I'm glad you mentioned it's about going upscale too, right? Like if you're going after someone like me or maybe you, right? Yeah. You're fucked, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because I can do AI and all this kind of stuff. But look, we're 1% of the market. The other part of the market, they want help figuring out a problem.
Yeah.
And then how quickly can we figure out that problem, give them a solution, and move them on? That's what the market's looking like. Agencies will always be around. The bad agencies won't. And the agencies that don't adapt or adjust, whether it be their clients, whether it be their offering. Like I chatted with someone a little while ago on the podcast. All of their account managers for ads, they're all AI managers now. And I loved it, right? Yeah. They're like, dude, like AI is doing this. And we're adapting and moving forward. So I love seeing that adaptation or transformation that we need versus what got us here is going to keep us here or grow. Yeah. I'm like, no. Like you got to constantly do different things, including us. Like we're always doing different things because I'm like, crap, man, all I had to do a couple years ago was run a couple ads and voila, like it's just magic. Well, that shit don't work
Send
anymore.
some cold emails.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, send a bunch of emails. Everybody's got the same damn pitch. Everybody looks the same damn way. There's about a million fucking people helping agencies out, which are hilarious when I get on, and they all look like they're 18 years old. And I just laugh. I'm like, that's why I have the gray beard. I'm like, that's my only separation.
I've moved up market.
Yeah, I moved up market. This allows me to charge a little bit more. So, but well, awesome. Well, Eli, man, I'm so glad of your success and kind of the transformation that you guys have actually done. If you guys enjoyed this episode listening in, make sure you go check out Eli and what they're doing. And if you guys want to be around really amazing, cool people, we have an amazing event coming up called Elevate. If you go to elevatemyagency.com, you can check it out. You can bring your team, and where you guys can focus on growing your agency faster, meeting really cool people. And until next time, have a swank day.